Hello, my name is Bentley and I'm going to be answering a couple questions regarding the Saddle Tramps, who are a all-men's organization here at Texas Tech University. I'm going to be asking them a few questions. These questions are going to be targeted towards two groups, one of them being a during COVID question group, and then the post-COVID question group. And then I'm going to be comparing and contrasting the differences between how the Saddle Tramps function during COVID and how they are functioning now after COVID. So I emailed two separate gentlemen of the organization, and since their schedules could not line up with mine and mine couldn't line up with theirs, I was forced to send them the questions over email so they could respond to me via email. So I'm going to start off with the during COVID member first. His name is James Reeder. He's a member of the executive board of the Saddle Tramps. And the first question that I asked James was, what are the Saddle Tramps? And he explained to me that the Saddle Tramps is an all-male organization that supports all of the men's athletics and upholds many traditions that you see on the Texas Tech campus, such as the rapping of Will Rogers. And if you don't know who Will Rogers is, it is the horse and cowboy statue right on Broadway. He's also a famous actor. They also do the ringing of the victory bells after each win. So if you hear the bells ringing from the bell tower after a sporting event, that's how you know that Texas Tech has won. They also do the Carol of Lights, and they even do the bonfire and build. They also burn it. It's very cool. I watched that in person. Many people on campus don't even know that we were the group that created almost all of these traditions. The homecoming parade / bonfire is just one of many, as well as being one of the oldest organizations on campus that was founded in 1936. Wow, that is a very old organization, almost nearing the 100-year mark, just like the university is. And our next question is going to be, what year did you join, and why did you decide to join the Saddle Tramps? And he told me that he joined the Saddle Tramps in the spring of 2021, which is kind of around mid-peak COVID. And he told me that he decided to join the Saddle Tramps because he had a few friends in the Tramps and they loved it. He joined, went through the pledgeship, and he loved it as well. My next question that I asked James is, could you tell me a little bit about the process of joining the Saddle Tramps? So this one is kind of a long answer, so bear with me. He said the process of joining the Saddle Tramps didn't change that much, even though we were in the height of COVID. We still had 3 rush events, but later made it to 4 events the following year. The first event was a fun kickball game at the student recreational fields. The second event was at the Jones AT&T Stadium, where we got to participate in one of his favorite traditions called a bell circle, which that is where they get to run out on the field before every home game. They create a massive circle, and I believe they ring the football team onto the field in front of a stadium that's just full of fans. After that rush event, the next one was a bid night. So that is where all of the active members meet up and discuss which potential new members they would like to place a bid on and have a chance at becoming an active member. Once you get a bid, you are officially a pledge, and you have to pass a series of manual tests, which consist of different Texas Tech traditions, past presidents of the university, the names of all of the mass rider mounts, and even how many and what bowl games we have participated in and won. We also had to know the history of the Saddle Tramps as well, such as you have to be a Saddle Tramp to become Raider Red, and Raider Red was created on September 8th, 1971 by Jim Gasberg and Dirk West. Wow, I did not know that. I will tell you something, those tests were not easy. That is what James said. as they do not sound easy. My next question is, did COVID make you second guess joining the Saddle Tramps? And this was his response. He said, "It was weird rushing with limitations, but I never second-guessed joining the Saddle Tramps because of all the fun that I had during the rush events and the lifelong friends that I have met during my pledge ship year, and the friends that I already had who were active members." The next question that I asked him was, could you tell me about the joining process during COVID? And he said, we still had normal rush events. However, every event was managed by making sure everyone was 6 feet apart, and they held their weekly meetings online. And he explained that the meetings, he would compare them to like a chapter meeting, like a fraternity or a sorority. The next question that I asked James was, do you think COVID has affected the number of pledges that joined during your year? His answer was, I do think it did, as we probably could have had a few more people join the Saddle Tramps, but people were still on edge about gathering in large groups and participating in any activity that involved a lot of people. I think that's fair. That is a good answer. My next question that I asked James was, did COVID affect the way that y'all did events or the traditions that y'all participated in? And this was his response. He said, it affected basketball and baseball games as the athletics only let a certain amount of Saddle Tramps in each event. We had to use a sign-in sheet to determine who went to what events, and we also had to conduct temperature checks to make sure everyone who was there was not running a fever. During our weekly meetings that were held online, we would decide the events we would go to in a sign-in sheet form, as I explained above. COVID did not affect our traditions, though. We still did all of them with all the members that could attend because most of our traditions are held outside. As an example, at every home football game, you see the light poles as well as Will Rogers and the Soap Sud statue on Broadway wrapped in red crepe paper. And my last and final question for James was if he had any questions for me, and this one he said he did not. And I really want to say thank you, James, for participating in this interview. Thank you. Now, for the pre-COVID questions, those were fantastic, and I really appreciate James again for doing that. Now I'm going to move on to the post-COVID member questions, and I emailed a gentleman. His name is Ashton Boone, and the first question that I asked him, very similarly to the during COVID question, is what year did you join the Saddle Tramps? And his answer was he joined this fall, the fall of 2022, and he is currently not a pledge anymore because they just had what we call final review, and if you make it through that, you become a neophyte, which means you become a new member, but you're not an active yet. He was explaining to me that it's kind of like a gray area between pledgeship and active membership. He also said that I won't become an active member until the beginning of spring 2023. So the next question that I asked Ashton was, what prompted you to join the Saddle Tramps? And his answer was, my friend prompted me to join the Tramps because he was telling me about the rush events that the Saddle Tramps were holding, and it really sounded like fun. I also did a little research on the org, and it sounded like a group that I could really be a part of and feel accepted in. I think that's a great answer. Everyone needs a group that they can feel accepted in. And the fourth question that I asked Ashton was, third question, could you tell me about the process of joining Saddle Tramps? Very similarly, it's a very similar answer to what James had to say. He said the process of joining Saddle Tramps is not easy, but it was very rewarding. The first thing you have to do is attend the rush events. There were 4 rush events this year. This year, the first event was at 4 Golf, for golf, which is like a driving range like Topgolf. It was basically just to meet the active members and see if you like them and if they like you. The second event was a kickball game, very similar right there with James' answer, at the student recreational fields. And it was really fun. We got to know the actives a little more, talk to other potential new members, and just have a good time. For the third event, we did a bell circle in the Jones AT&T football stadium, and that's really what sold me. It's just such an adrenaline rush and one of the coolest experiences of my life. Wow, now that makes me want to participate in one. And then the fourth event was bid night. We were given a nice dinner, and we got to talk to more of the actives. And then when we were told to leave the dinner, they all voted on us to see who would get a bid. And if you got a bid, they would show up to your dorm room, apartment, or house and give you an official bid letter. This was really nerve-wracking to him because they were handing out bids from 8:30 to 11 p.m. that night, and he didn't get his bid until 10:30 p.m. So I believe he was telling me that the dinner ended at 6, so that's 4.5 hours of just waiting with your own thoughts, so I could see why you would get nervous. Number 5, the fifth question, I believe, or is this the... No, this is the fourth. I am so sorry, I'm just jumping all around here. The fourth question that I have is, what was your experience going through pledgeship to join Saddle Tramps? And he said, my experience was quite fun, but difficult at the same time. There were no COVID restrictions at this time, so we got to go to every football game, and we were just starting to attend the basketball games, since those have recently just started. I would say the hardest part about going through pledgeship is definitely the time commitment and the pledge tests. The pledge tests are so hard. The Saddle Tramps have a pledge manual, and all of the questions come directly from there. The questions consist of the history of Saddle Tramps and Texas Tech University. There are 9 separate tests. Wow, that is a lot. And if you don't get a passing average, you get cut from the organization. Wow, so you really have to be devoted to join this organization. And my final question for him was, do you think COVID has affected the number of pledges this semester and possibly the coming semesters? His answer was, I don't think it affected the number of pledges we saw come in during the fall of 2022 semester, considering that it was a record year for us in the number of pledges we have. This semester, we had a total of 35 pledges, and out of those 35, 30 of us made it through completely. So that means 30 of them became neophytes, and I believe that they are currently still neophytes. Compared at the past semesters where they could only obtain, he would say, probably a maximum of 10 to 15 pledges. So no, Ashton does not think COVID has affected the organization this year. And as on the coming semesters, he's going to have to stick with the same answer. People just don't care about COVID anymore, and they are sick and tired of it controlling their day-to-day lives. And I say that's pretty fair. I was honestly tired of it, probably 14 days in. And then I did ask him if he had any questions for me, and he did not. But I just want to say thank you to Ashton and James for both answering these questions for me. And it sounds like that the process of joining really hasn't changed. The only thing that you see that's different is, again, the number of pledges and the amount of people that got to go to the different sporting events. Now that right there, I would say, is kind of minuscule compared to what some other organizations, groups, businesses experienced during COVID. It doesn't sound like they really had it hard during COVID. It sounds like they were doing quite well. So in conclusion, COVID really didn't have an effect on the Saddle Tramps besides what sporting events they could go to and the number of pledges that they could obtain. And I personally believe that that's minuscule, and they are now doing even better than they were before COVID. So it's fantastic for them. And I just want to say thank you for listening, and have a great day.